My boyfriend broke up with me for the dumbest reason after I supported him for years. I was 31 when my boyfriend of 6 years broke up with me because I didn't fold laundry fast enough, while sitting on the couch I paid for in the house I own. You don't do enough around the house, Finn said, like he'd been rehearsing the line, like he was the victim in all this. I actually thought he was joking at first, but when his expression didn't change, something inside me just shifted. This was the same man I'd been carrying financially for half a decade, and he was telling me I wasn't pulling my weight. I met Finn when I was 25. I was working full-time in marketing, grinding my way up, while he was chasing dreams. And I mean chasing, never quite catching. There was the YouTube channel that was supposed to make him the next big thing. It didn't. Then came the NFT art phase, where he swore he was ahead of the curve. He wasn't. After that, crypto trading, where he lost most of his savings, then drop shipping, then affiliate marketing. Every few months, a new passion project, a new reason why this time would be different. And I believed him. Every single time. The mortgage? Mine. Utilities? Mine. Groceries? Car payments? His laptop for editing? All mine. I wasn't his girlfriend. I was his safety net. But I kept telling myself it was temporary, that he just needed time to find his footing. I loved him. I thought that was enough. 2 weeks before the breakup, things started feeling off. Finn became distant, spending more time on his phone than usual. He started making these weird philosophical comments about needing space to grow and finding himself. I figured he was just gearing up for another failed venture, but then he started criticizing the house, pointing out unwashed dishes or unfolded laundry with this judgmental tone I'd never heard from him before. Then last Tuesday, he sat me down at the kitchen table after I got home from work. He had this serious look on his face, and I braced myself for whatever new scheme he was about to pitch. I think we should break up. I blinked. What? You don't do enough around the house. I feel like I do all the emotional labor. I'm always the one pointing out when things need to be done. I laughed. I genuinely thought it was some kind of joke, but he didn't crack a smile. Let me paint you a picture. I work insane hours to keep us afloat while he's at home brainstorming. Yes, sometimes I'm too tired to do the dishes right away. Sometimes I leave my coffee mug on the counter or forget to put my shoes away. But I pay every single bill that keeps a roof over our heads and food in our fridge. Meanwhile, Finn's biggest contribution to our household has been reorganizing the bookshelf by genre 3 times and throwing out my perfectly good Tupperware because it didn't spark joy anymore. This is the same man who has a meltdown if the Wi-Fi goes out for more than 5 minutes. The same man who won't even order takeout without asking for my input 3 times and still managing to get my order wrong. But here he was, telling me I wasn't doing enough. You never clean up after yourself, he continued, like he was reading from a script. And I feel like I'm emotionally drained from this relationship. I asked him to clarify, because surely, he wasn't serious. He doubled down. That's when he said it. I think it's best if you move back in with your mom or something. This will be a good reset for both of us. And then the cherry on top. I'm thinking about turning the guest room into my office once you're gone. Maybe get a dog since there won't be anyone to complain about the hair. That's when it hit me. He genuinely thought the house was his. Not the house my grandparents left me. Not the house with my name on every bill, every document, every piece of paper that mattered. He thought he was kicking me out of his place. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just said, okay, and went upstairs. Because in that moment, I realized something important. I wasn't angry anymore. I was clear. And clarity is so much more powerful than rage. I locked myself in the bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed, letting it all sink in. Finn had forgotten, or maybe never realized, whose name was actually on the deed to this house. Every mortgage payment, every repair, every utility bill, it was all in my name. This house was my inheritance. He had no legal claim to anything. And suddenly, I wasn't sad about the breakup. I was curious. How far would he take this delusion? So I decided to let him play house. Let him think he'd won. Let him believe I was packing my bags and heading out the door like some defeated ex-girlfriend. Because the look on his face when reality finally hit was going to be worth every second of patience. The next day, I watched him lounge around like he owned the place. He left messes everywhere, played video games until 4 a.m, and started telling me what I needed to pack up so I could leave in an orderly way. I just nodded and played along. About a week later, he told me he was having a friend over. The way he said it, cold, dismissive, made it clear this wasn't just any friend. When the doorbell rang, I opened it to find a woman standing there with a bright smile and a bottle of wine. Her name was Mila. She was perfectly nice, polite even. But the way she looked at Finn, they were together, no question. Finn didn't even bother introducing us properly. He just breezed past me like I was the maid and started giving Mila a tour of the house. My house. "This is the living room," he said, gesturing around like a real estate agent. "I've been thinking about getting a new couch. Something more modern, you know? This is the kitchen. I love the open layout. Great for hosting. And this is my office. It's where I do most of my work these days." I almost choked. Work. The man hasn't had a job since 2018. The office was the spare bedroom I set up for him to maybe do some freelance projects, but it was mostly just where he played Fortnite. Mila was eating it up. I could see her imagining herself living here, settling into some Pinterest-perfect life. Meanwhile, I was standing in the kitchen, gripping my coffee mug so hard I thought it might crack. I had two options: blow up and let them both know exactly how I felt, or play it cool and let Finn dig himself into a hole. I chose patience. The entire evening, Finn acted like he'd already moved on and was just graciously allowing me to stay until I figured things out. At one point, he even pulled me aside and said, "I think it's best if we start working on a timeline for when you'll be out." No rush, of course, but Mila and I need to start planning. Planning. A housewarming party in my living room. I just smiled and said, "Oh, don't worry. I'm handling everything." The smugness on his face was almost funny. The next morning, while Finn was still asleep, I called a locksmith. By 10 a.m., every lock in the house had been changed. I paid the guy, thanked him, and sat down with a cup of tea to wait. When Finn finally woke up and strolled into the kitchen around noon, I casually said, "By the way, I had the locks changed this morning. You'll need to grab your things and leave by the end of the day." The panic on his face was instant. He went pale. "What do you mean you changed the locks?" "You can't do that." "Oh, I absolutely can. This is my house, remember? It's in my name. You're not on the deed. You're not on the mortgage. And now, you're not welcome here." He tried to argue. He tried to plead. At one point, he even tried to guilt trip me. "I thought you loved me. I thought we were building something together." I just stood there, arms crossed, watching him unravel. Mila showed up later that evening, probably expecting another cozy night with her man. Instead, she got to witness Finn shoving his belongings into trash bags while I reminded him not to forget his gaming chair. She looked so confused. "Wait, this isn't your house?" Finn didn't even try to answer her. By sunset, they were both gone. I poured myself a glass of wine, sat down on the couch Finn had wanted to replace, and thought about how close I'd come to losing everything because I was too generous with my time, my money, and my patience. A few days later, I got a call from our mutual friend Caleb. He wanted to check in, but I could tell he was fishing for something. "Did Finn send you?" I asked. He hesitated, then told me the truth. Turns out, Finn had been planning this breakup for months. He'd been telling everyone, friends, family, acquaintances, that he was about to take over the house and start a new chapter. He'd painted himself as the long-suffering boyfriend who'd finally had enough of my nagging. According to him, the house was basically his because of all the work he'd put into making it a home. I had to pause. What work? The man barely did his own laundry. Caleb said Finn never mentioned that the house was in my name. He said you'd probably just leave when he asked. And if you didn't, he'd figure it out. Figure it out. The audacity. Apparently, Finn was so confident I'd roll over that he'd already planned a housewarming party. In my house. With Mila. But here's what really got me. Finn had been downplaying everything I did for him. He told people I barely paid the bills and that he was the one holding it all together. This was the guy who didn't even know how much the mortgage was. When I found all this out, I realized I couldn't just let it slide. Not after years of emotional manipulation, financial freeloading, and now this ridiculous smear campaign. So I sent a polite but firm group message to our mutual friends. I kept it factual. The house was in my name. Finn never paid a dime toward the mortgage or bills, and any claims that he built our life together were outright lies. I included screenshots of the lease agreement, utility bills, and even a photo of the deed, all with only my name. The group chat exploded. Most people were shocked but supportive. A few of his closer friends tried to defend him, saying he was going through a lot. I shut that down quickly. We all go through things, I said, but that doesn't give you the right to lie and steal. Finn found out and called me, furious. He accused me of ruining his life and said I had no right to air our dirty laundry. You've been doing that yourself for months, I said calmly. I just corrected the record. Then I hung up and blocked him. I also reached out to his parents. They'd always been kind to me, and I felt like they deserved to know the truth. I didn't go into every detail, but I told them enough to make it clear that Finn's victim narrative was a complete fabrication. They were horrified. His mom apologized profusely and said she had no idea Finn had been treating me so poorly. She even offered to pay me back for some of the bills, but I declined. I wasn't interested in money. I just wanted them to know the truth. A few weeks later, I ran into Mila at a coffee shop. She approached me, clearly embarrassed, and apologized for getting involved. She said Finn had lied to her about everything, including that the house situation was mutual. Then she told me the funniest thing. Finn was living in his car. Apparently, none of his friends wanted to take him in after learning the truth, and his parents weren't interested in bailing him out either. I don't wish homelessness on anyone, but in this case, I can't say I felt too bad. He made his bed, or, in this case, his back seat, and now he had to lie in it. But Finn wasn't done yet. Last week, I was having lunch with my sister Nora when she started acting weird. Finally, I asked her what was up. "Don't be mad," she said, which is never a good sign. But Finn reached out to me. He'd asked her for money, $2,000 to be exact. He told her we'd had some sort of verbal agreement about the house and that he just needed to get back on his feet so he could fight for what's rightfully his. I was about to lose it. But then Nora showed me their text conversation, and I realized she'd made him sign a proper IOU, complete with repayment terms, interest, and his car as collateral. "I knew he was full of it," she said, grinning. "I wanted proof of exactly how desperate he was getting." I could have hugged her. Meanwhile, Finn had been spinning different stories to different people. To some, he was the victim of a manipulative ex. To others, he was a generous partner who'd given up everything for me. And to a few, he was claiming we'd had some sort of business partnership that I'd betrayed. Last week, he even told someone I'd promised to put his name on the deed as a birthday gift, but changed my mind out of spite. Pretty creative for someone who once forgot my birthday entirely because he was too busy trying to become a Twitch streamer. Then yesterday, I got a series of increasingly unhinged messages from him, threatening to expose me to everyone we know. I haven't responded, but I've saved every single one. Last Sunday, I ran into Finn's mom at the grocery store. She looked exhausted, worried but also angry. She asked if we could get coffee, and something in her voice made me agree. Once we sat down, she took a deep breath. I need to tell you what Finn's been up to. This has gone too far. She told me Finn had shown up at their house with this elaborate story about how he was getting the house back. He claimed he had evidence that I tricked him, that he'd given me cash for the down payment. His mom reminded him that she and his dad had been there when I bought the house, before Finn even moved in. But Finn just talked over her, going on about how he was building a case and needed money. When they refused, he lost it completely. Started accusing them of never supporting his dreams, of choosing my side over their own son. Then she told me things I'd never known, like how Finn had told his younger sister he'd bought me out of the house months ago and borrowed her savings for renovations, or how he'd been going around to relatives telling different versions of the story. To some, he claimed we were secretly married. To others, he said I'd promised him the house in exchange for sweat equity. He even told his grandmother I was holding his gaming equipment hostage, the same equipment I donated to charity months ago. His mom showed me screenshots of a GoFundMe page he'd made. Help local man reclaim his home from manipulative ex. It was full of completely made-up stories about how he'd invested his life savings into the house and how I'd manipulated the paperwork to cut him out. He'd even posted pictures of my house, claiming he'd done all these renovations himself. People were actually donating. He'd raised about $800 before his mom reported the page and got it taken down. I had to do something, she said. He needs to face reality. She told me Finn had been sleeping in his car in their driveway for the past week, refusing to come inside unless they supported his cause. Every morning he'd leave, claiming he had meetings about getting the house back. Every evening he'd return with some new story about his progress. She'd finally had enough when she overheard him on the phone trying to convince Mila to be a character witness. Mila, to her credit, had laughed and hung up. I'm not telling you this to get sympathy for him, his mom said. I'm telling you because I want you to be prepared. He's not going to stop until he has no choice. Then she handed me a small photo album. Inside were pictures of Finn from the past few years, family events, holidays, casual moments. In every single one, he was on his phone or laptop, supposedly working on his next big thing while everyone else was actually living their lives. I should have seen it sooner, she said. How he used people. How he always had an angle. I enabled him for too long, and I'm sorry you got caught up in it. She told me she and Finn's dad had made a decision. They were changing their locks and cutting off his access to their Wi-Fi. No more sleeping in their driveway. No more enabling his delusions. They'd arranged for him to stay with his uncle in another state who'd offered him a real job. No computers, no schemes, just honest work. He either takes the offer and gets his life together, she said, or he figures it out on his own. But we're done watching him try to tear down other people's lives because he refuses to build his own. As we were leaving, she hugged me and whispered, "Thank you for showing him there are consequences. I just wish he'd learn from them." That night, I went home and donated every last thing Finn had ever touched. His old desk, the couch he never sat on, even the cursed gaming chair he'd left behind. A local charity was thrilled to take it all, and I was thrilled to see it go. I poured myself a glass of wine, sat down on my couch, and thought about how much lighter life feels when you stop carrying someone else's failure. Sometimes, the dumbest breakup of your life becomes the smartest thing that ever happened to you. Don't waste years proving your worth to someone who can't even pay the Wi-Fi bill. And definitely don't fold laundry for someone who's never folded anything but the truth. Our story has come to an end. If you've made it this far, how about subscribing to our channel? It helps us immensely. I've selected 2 other videos for you that I'm sure you'll enjoy. Feel free to click on them. I'll be waiting for you in the next story. See you soon.